committing suicide. I was told that all I needed to do was ensure to buy him cigarettes and he wouldn't kill himself, but if he didn't have cigarettes, that he was going to think that the Mexican cartel was going to kill him. McKay Cody James discussed feelings of suicide and fears that the Mexican cartel was going to kill him before he killed himself. I found his body hanging from a tree while looking for a tree to hang myself on to commit suicide. This actually worked to prevent me from using the noose knot I had already tied to commit suicide prior to finding his body. Simply because I had to call the police and file a police report. When I first found his body, I didn't know I found a dead body and thought it was a Halloween decoration that was left out hanging from a tree. I found a large branch and poked his stomach to see if his stomach decompressed. It didn't. It was actually very stiff, but when I got close enough, I smelled a strong odor and saw maggots crawling out of his face, which was blue and purple. Completely unable to recognize his face, I checked his wallet for ID, which read McKay Cody James, and called the police after washing my hands. I returned to the camp after I finished talking to the police and discovered my friend, who mysteriously disappeared one day, named Cody, actually introduced himself to me by his middle name because his full name was McKay Cody James. After discovering I didn't just poke a dead body with a stick, I poked my dead friend with a stick. I developed an eating disorder and PTSD from it. I was hypnotized to believe that my friend died because of a freak accident during the movie production instead of him being murdered with hypnosis. I was hypnotized to think it was my fault he committed suicide because I didn't buy him cigarettes, but at the time I didn't even know he was hypnotized, let alone hypnotized to commit suicide without cigarettes. Since I was already taking tranquilizer medication and frequently visited the emergency room, I was hypnotized to think the tranquilizer medication, Klonopin, meant it's not my fault and that the tranquilizer medication, Valium, meant I didn't know. I was hypnotized to think any emergency room visit was a movie scene and that these medications were supposed to represent different movie scripts. That it's not my fault meant it's not my fault I wanted to kill him, and that I didn't know meant I didn't know he was hypnotized to commit suicide if I didn't buy him cigarettes. I was also hypnotized to think Klonopin meant I was making movie scenes, and that Valium meant an emergency medical intervention for my movie. I was hypnotized to believe that hypnosis was inhibiting me because I didn't care enough about Cody in an attempt to abuse me for witnessing his murder without me knowing I witnessed a murder. Since I sincerely cared about Cody, the post-hypnotic suggestion to believe otherwise was completely ineffective, which cued the post-hypnotic suggestion to think that I shouldn't think about my dead friend so much during my movie, because then people would find out that someone died making my movie for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. The people that hypnotized me also threatened me for talking about my dead friend. I was threatened that they were going to use my innocence regarding the situation with my dead friend Cody to make Donald Trump seem innocent and frame me for it. I was also hypnotized to think that my dead friend smelled fragrant before eating to keep me from eating. Having some difficulty speaking because of the hypnosis, but moving on. A method of distracting me from writing a murder witness statement I was writing was drawing, and I was hypnotized to draw something that resembled a hand cramping and to think of when my hand started cramping only while writing the word murder while writing a previous murder witness statement that I recorded. I was then hypnotized to forget the small drawing was supposed to resemble a hand cramping and to cover it up by turning the drawing into ocean waves to ensure I drew the ocean waves. I was hypnotized to draw wind blowing against a sailboat's sail as practice to make drawing the ocean waves seem easy. I was hypnotized to imagine a river flowing from the last pen strokes in the letter R and to draw waves coming off the bottom of the letter and to think the ocean waves meant Bear River Mental Health is flooded with phone calls about Matt Jester. This was a reference to when I had a friend named Jason call Bear River Mental Health and tell them to stop abusing me. I was also hypnotized to think that Bear River Mental Health would be flooded with phone calls about me if I broke my legs jumping off a flight of stairs in jail so that I could go to the hospital to get the medications I needed. I was also hypnotized to imagine staff at Bear River Mental Health having to wear flood pants with their pant legs rolled up to their knees because they were flooded with phone calls about me. I was also hypnotized to think the lyrics referencing water rising in one of Billie Eilish's songs about global warming was also a reference to water rising in the Bear River and flooding the Bear River when Bear River mental health becomes flooded with phone calls about me. I was also hypnotized to imagine the ending pun strokes in the letter R that turned into ocean waves was a roaring river. That was a reference to the historical decade known as the Roaring Twenties, which was a period of economic growth and social change. So, I actually have that witness statement that I was referencing here. So you can see I actually describe a handwriting analysis in detail in another video. Feel free to check out my YouTube channel. I'll leave a link to watch that actually as well in the description for this video. But you can see this is the letter R that I was referencing. And this is the bottom pen stroke with the unfilled white spots in the lettering. I was hypnotized to imagine that being light reflecting off of a river to enhance and intensify the visualization that it was a river flowing down the letter R. And so coming up into a roaring river of waves right here that you can see. Let's see. So you can also see the stick figures that I drew here on accident while writing in the lettering. So the letter H in my name, Matthew, which is still, for the most part, relatively legible, even with the obvious drawing of a stick figure representing one of the letters. And then same thing with letter N and the word investigate here. So these were, again, used as distractions. And there were other various drawings included. These were also used to try to cover up my name, which you can see I actually had to do a little bit of adjustments here on the paper just to ensure the legibility to be able to present the evidence that I had, as well as including McKay Cody James's name here. I do elaborate in detail a little bit more specifically in the video hypnosis and handwriting analysis with this, and also how I noticed some of the patterns in the letters that were supposedly death threats to Billie Eilish. So, let's see. I was framed for assault charges I didn't commit using hypnosis to ensure I was in the right place at the right time so I could get framed without me knowing it, and so that hypnosis could be used to inhibit my ability to speak and write so that I couldn't defend myself in the court of law or consult with an attorney. I was framed to prevent me from filing a medical malpractice lawsuit and to prevent me from ending up on the news because of it. In Cache County Sheriff's Office, there is a policy through the local mental health authority, Bear River Mental Health, that there are no controlled substances prescribed in the jail, so the only way I could get the medications I needed for my medical conditions was by hospitalizing myself, which would require obtaining an injury. The only way I would have been able to obtain an injury would be to jump off a flight of stairs and break my legs, which is where the references to breaking legs came from, which is why I was hypnotized to draw flights of stairs and medications. While in jail, the hypnosis was used to treat my PTSD and hyperventilation syndrome without any record of my medical conditions being treated to prevent me from getting medical malpractice or ending up on the news. So why the hyperventilation syndrome was so significant is because I used to actually hyperventilate for 3 hours at a time, 3 times a day, every single day for about 9 months when it first started. This would have been, breaking the Book of World Records for being abused by our medical system, and then simultaneously legalizing marijuana and exposing all the propaganda surrounding marijuana resulted in me becoming hypnotized to prevent me from doing so. I was hypnotized to draw different medications that were each supposed to represent specific things. I was also hypnotized to draw mountains and stairs, which also had very specific meanings. I was hypnotized to think drawing Klonopin pills meant I had a contract with Bear River Mental Health and that I could get mental health court to get me out of jail to prevent a very serious medical malpractice lawsuit, since Bear River Mental Health wouldn't give me my medications while in jail. I was hypnotized to think the Klonopin represented Bear River Mental Health because Bear River Mental Health used to prescribe me Klonopin, and it would result in an extremely serious lawsuit if I had to jump off a flight of stairs, break my legs, and hospitalize myself because Bear River Mental Health wouldn't give me my medications in jail. I was hypnotized to imagine that if I could get approved for Bear River Mental Health Court, it would be like I'd be going to court with the bear named Baloo from the movie The Jungle Book protecting me from breaking my legs because Bear River Mental Health would let me out of jail. I was also hypnotized to imagine the bottom pencil stroke and the letter pencil strokes and the letter in the K letter inscription on the Klonopin pill as legs, and that that if I didn't get approved from Bear River Mental Health Court, that the legs were broken because they would have allowed me to get my medications outpatient, so I wouldn't have had to break my legs to get my medications. They would have let me out of jail with Bear River Mental Health Court. I was also hypnotized to think that the reason Bear River Mental Health wanted to prevent me from breaking my legs was because if I broke my spinal cord on accident jumping off a flight of stairs, I could become paralyzed for the rest of my life, and that the lawsuit could cost Bear River Mental Health $300 million. I think I was also hypnotized to remember the amount of $300 million by adding a 0 to the number inscription on the Adderall pill I was hypnotized to draw, which was 30. I actually explained specifically why later in this. I was hypnotized to think drawing Valium pills meant I had a contract with Intermountain Healthcare for a discrete medical malpractice settlement agreement. I was hypnotized to draw a little stick figure climbing a mountain, and I was hypnotized to think that if I wanted the jail time to be sentenced over my head so that I could be released from the jail, that I should draw a little arm over the stick figure's head. I was hypnotized to think the mountains meant Intermountain Healthcare, and that the stick figure climbing the mountain was me trying to get healthcare. I was hypnotized to think that if I actually had medical malpractice and if I wanted healthcare, that as long as I didn't sue him or talk about anything related to medical malpractice, that I could plead no contest in court and get the jail time sentenced over my head so that I could go to the hospital to get healthcare, and that he would give me 50% of the company, and all that I had to do was ask for Valium in the emergency room after getting out of jail. I was also hypnotized to think that the message goes right over little Billy's head after drawing the little arm over the stick figure's head, and that the stick figure was little Billy. This was done because the metaphor itself is a hypnotic suggestion implying that if I wanted or needed to get healthcare, that I needed to plead no contest in court, and the stick figure was named Little Billy just to confuse me so that I wouldn't know I was being deceived. In this context, I was hypnotized to think Little Billy was a metaphor referring to a young child that would be watching the movie about me produced by the Make-A-Wish Foundation, similar to how John Doe is a commonly used metaphor to reference a male's name, and Jane Doe is a commonly used metaphor to reference a female's name. The metaphor was used to make me believe the unfortunate circumstances that I couldn't get the medical care I needed in jail would go right over Little Billy's head so that I wouldn't portray the image that the Make-A-Wish Foundation was scary as a method of instilling the belief that the message would be going over someone else's head and not mine. So they got me to plead, they used that as a method to get me to plead no contest. I was hypnotized to draw a scored Adderall tablet with the number 30 inscribed on the pill and a series of short horizontal lines behind the pill to make the pill look like it was a spinning football. When I first drew it, I was hypnotized to think, throw me an Adderall, and after I drew it, I was hypnotized to imagine my nephew saying, throw me a football, and to imagine throwing my nephew a football. I was also hypnotized to imagine my grandma yelling, woohoo, touchdown, And my grandbaby is a genius. I was hypnotized to think that the 30 milligram Adderall meant that if I sent my grandma $300 for rent money and sent her the postcard with a 30 milligram Adderall on it, that my grandma would help get me out of jail because it was in the contract with the Make-A-Wish Foundation that Donald Trump would pay her $300 million for it. I was also hypnotized to think that the Make-A-Wish Foundation was like a game show. Money all around. When I thought about how I was hypnotized to draw an Adderall pill like a football, I was hypnotized to think two-hand touch or tackle football. I was hypnotized to think of the eagle I was hypnotized to draw, and I was hypnotized to remember the bald eagle baseball cap I wore when I got tackled by my brother-in-law, and how he knocked my baseball cap and sunglasses off the top of my head because that's when I got framed for the aggravated assault charges I didn't commit. I was also intoxicated at the time, but I took Adderall right on cue to negate the hypnotic confusion I was experiencing, which also can negate the intoxicating effects of alcohol, including memory loss, which is why I remember everything crystal clear. Very elaborate. Moving on, I was hypnotized to even draw a flight of stairs because it represented how I could have broken my legs and possibly even broke my spinal cord, becoming paralyzed for the rest of my life, jumping off a flight of stairs in jail because I couldn't get the medications I needed in jail. Camera's a little bit blurry reading that, so I apologize. Anyways, I was told that every time I went grocery shopping or went out to eat that I was making commercials. I was told that Donald Trump had a contract with the Make-A-Wish Foundation where every dollar that I spent, Donald Trump had to spend $1 million to pay for the movie production and commercial. I was also told that COVID-19 was a zombie apocalypse theme for my movie and that COVID-19 stimulus bills were funding my movie production. The social worker that hypnotized me in Jordan Valley Medical Center financially exploited me by telling me that America's economy is based off products valuing quality over quantity, and that every product I'd buy would be sponsored by the company that made it, and that I needed to buy brand name products to advertise for them, which is obviously financial exploitation because brand name products are more expensive than generics. The social worker also told me that I had a Roche sponsorship, which is a pharmaceutical company, and that Roche was going to let me advertise the pharmaceutical medications Valium and Klonopin as high-quality pharmaceuticals in comparison to Xanax by Pfizer, which is FDA approved and stronger dosages and available in a larger quantity as a tranquilizer than Valium and Klonopin are FDA approved for. The social worker also told me that the cooks at Jordan Valley Medical Center really prided themselves on the quality of the food that they cooked and that I was supposed to go back there and ask for Valium. The social worker told me that the sooner I went back to Jordan Valley Medical Center, that it meant the better their food was supposed to taste and that their food was supposed to taste as good as I do because all the girls want to eat me up. So the better their food was, the better I was. I was also not supposed to mention Adderall in court, and I was told that if the judge asked about the Adderall, I was supposed to say Jordan Valley Medical Center has the best food in the world, guilty as charged, which was supposed to mean girls want to eat me up more than anyone else in the world, guilty as charged. Let's see. I was hypnotized to think I had a Roche sponsorship for drawing the Klonopin and Valium on postcards. And to reinforce the belief, I was also told that Roche was going to help me patent the nootropic supplements I wanted to get approved through the FDA for various indications, from Alzheimer's disease to various medical and health benefits in general, some even potentially helping to benefit in the treatment of cancer, which is why I was hypnotized to write Nootrop Shop at the bottom of the postcard as well. I was hypnotized to write and draw on the front of the postcards to impair my ability to legibly write the return and sending address enough that the postcards would be denied and returned to me by the post office in order to completely isolate me from my friends and family. When I was hypnotized to draw on the postcards, the drawings were actually evidence I was hypnotized. In order to prevent me from using the drawings as evidence, I was hypnotized to attempt to send the postcards because it required me to write over the drawings, which significantly impaired the evidence on the postcards. And unfortunately, they were also denied, like I specified. So, as you can see here, this is, I didn't draw on the front of this one, I believe at least. But you can see I did write on in various different areas. I don't know exactly what all I wrote, but regardless, you can see it was denied. You can also see the timestamp here, which was August 26, 2020. And then here is the other postcard, which also actually has some of the drawings on it. You can see here there's a heart, half moon, or a crescent moon, a half moon. Over here, you can see, you can vaguely see a partially uncovered drawing of a circle colored in and bubble lettering for a V shape. That was volume. And you can also actually see, it looks like I drew a second one right here as well. It looks like at least the bottom portion is still remaining, even though the sticker being torn off to try to uncover the drawings actually just impaired the integrity of the evidence entirely. Regardless of such, you can also see New Trop Shop written here. And then you can also see G-Eazy, or at least portions of that writing here. And unfortunately, I believe the Adderall pill that I attempted to draw was covered up. This might have actually been another pill that I was hypnotized to draw. It looks like. Can barely see it, but it looks like it's there. The shading is a little bit blended as well, so it's not a very visible contrast necessarily, but you can see something there. There's also something here. You can't exactly make out what it is, but regardless, there are some various drawings that are visible here. Although not too much. I also did write Nostalgia Cycle here next to G-Eazy, because that was a song by G-Eazy. BLM, meaning Black Lives Matter. Regardless of the color of my skin, doesn't negate how much Black Lives Matter, but back to the subject. There's also some writing on the front that you can see, so don't want to take too much time on that. On one of the postcards I wrote, "This jail is making me waste everyone's time and money. It's also destroying my health. Do you want me to tell everyone in court about the hypnotherapy that got me false charges, or would you rather just drop the charges or let me get mental health court and pretend the entire thing never happened? My mom owes me over $500. Send it on my books. Need phone calls. I love you. With love, Matthew Jester." And you can see here, not on that postcard, on this one. This is the one that was actually dated on the 26th of August, 2020. And you can see most of the writing, specifically you can see hypnotherapy right there, fairly clearly. And then false, you can see a portion of the word charges. Then you can see the word charges written again. You kind of get a gist. My mom owes me over $500. Send it to me on my books. Need phone calls. I love you. With love. There's my name. Of course, very difficult to read, but regardless, moving on. I was hypnotized to cross Something else I wrote about hypnosis, which again, unfortunately, partially impairs the integrity of the evidence. So you can see here, you can vaguely see a portion of the writing of the word hypnosis. You can see HYP the most clearly. HYP. And then it looks like you can see vaguely the letter N. And then a little bit of room for the O and an S. Regardless, that's all there, and it's dated as well. Further evidence. The postcards are actually the only sample I have of my handwriting before I was taught to change my handwriting, and the letter formation and handwriting in my handwriting with hypnosis while in jail. I will show a comparison of the variations in my handwriting very briefly. So let's see. I'll try to make this very, very quick. For example, a majority of the I's, the capital letter I's that I draw, are just a single vertical line. They used to have the, my I's used to be written as a single vertical line with two horizontal lines intersecting at the top and the bottom of the vertical line. Let's see. You can also see the letter A. I began so this is how I used to write my A, and this is how I began writing my letter A's, with a little protrusion from the top of the letter. So you can see that in the word jail, that's not there. In the word making, that's not there. In the word paid, that's not there. In every word. Because I never used to do that. The word health. Let's see. The word hypnotherapy right here.